Hello, everyone, and welcome to The Creative's Dilemma. I'm your host, Caitlin, an opinionated connoisseur of the internet. Let's dive in. In today's episode, we're going to be dealing with juggling some complex emotions tied to our use of technology. As a digital media and design student, it feels like everywhere I turn throughout my creative endeavors, I am struck with the constant feeling of needing to do more. A feeling of constantly having to reinvent my work, with a sensation that it's still not good enough. They say old habits die hard, but I, for one, can't help but feel the constant pressures of academia seeping into my personal creative time. It feels like my experimental, personal content has to meet the same level of precision, perfection, and quality as my schoolwork. There is a standard to be met at all times, and to be honest, I don't know if it's viable anymore. Consuming media at 360 degrees around yourself, it gets so difficult not to see your own worth in a negative light. Creative burnout is a road spiraled down by many artists and creatives. But as a VFA 3D animation major, I'm cooked. Starting a passion project anytime in the semester feels like a fool's dream. And sure, I chose this path with my major. But what is it in our brains that compels us to manipulate technology and create, even when it drains us? At a certain point, a student's relationship with their own creativity and technology starts to feel like a toxic relationship. So today, we're going to be breaking that down. Let's talk about what creative burnout actually is. Burnout is not just exhaustion, it's a deep mental and emotional fatigue that makes your passions start to feel like a chore. It's when you sit down to create something and instead of feeling excitement, you feel dread. One of the biggest contributors to burnout is overexposure. I know, I'm a victim of it. When you're constantly surrounded by digital media, whether it be TikToks, Reels, YouTube videos, portfolio websites, you are bombarded with the highest level of creativity from artists worldwide. And that's super inspiring, sure, but it's also incredibly overwhelming. You start comparing your raw, work-in-progress pieces to someone else's finished masterpiece, and suddenly, your work starts to feel like it doesn't measure up. It's not just the comparison trap. As students, we are in an environment that demands high levels of technical skill, constant learning, and output on a strict deadline. In the world of digital art, animation, and media, our projects are not just about creativity. They involve mastering complex software, troubleshooting any issues you run into, and pushing past our limits to meet academic expectations. The problem is, when your creativity is structured around deadlines and grades, it can become difficult to separate that from your own personal art. You begin associating creation with stress rather than joy. And that's where burnout creeps in. I spoke to a few fellow students about this, and they all had the same sentiment. Personal projects feel impossible when school is taking every ounce of creative energy. One friend told me even when they had free time, I don't want to make anything anymore. I just want to shut my own brain off. And that's valid, because sometimes when we push ourselves too hard, we forget why we even want to start creating in the first place. So, what's the role of digital media in all of this? We live in an age where social media algorithms thrive on content. The pressure to constantly create is insane. If you're an artist, you've probably felt it. You post something you're proud of, it does well, and then suddenly there's this unspoken expectation. When's the next post? It's this endless loop of producing, posting, engaging, and repeating. The minute you take a step back, the algorithm will punish you. Fewer views, less engagement. It doesn't help that digital media has made creativity feels like a numbers game. We aren't just making things for the joy of it anymore. We're making them to perform, to trend, to stay on the radar. And when the content we pour our hearts into doesn't get the recognition we feel like it deserves, it's certainly personal. I feel like as I've analyzed and researched this topic further, it's become easier for me to disconnect the association of my creative worth from my social media engagement. Google Trends shows that searches for terms like burnout symptoms have jumped 19% compared to 3 years ago. That's not a stat, it's a signal. People are feeling it. Emily Bradley, head of operations at the creative agency Fat Joe, shared important insight. She says creative burnout is becoming more common because of how the creative industry works. For many of us, there's no real boundary between work and personal life. We are expected to stay inspired, stay online, stay original, all at the same time. And that constant demand, it adds up. Now, let's throw in a few numbers. A study from the Chartered Institute of Marketing found that 56% of marketing professionals worry about burning out. But it gets heavier. 73% of content creators say they experience burnout at least occasionally. That's nearly 3 out of 4 people. This is something a lot of creatives struggle with, the feeling that their work doesn't matter unless it's being seen. And I want to take a second to push back on that. Your work does matter, even if it's just for you, even if the world never sees it. The value of your creativity is not measured by likes, shares, or the algorithm. It's measured by how it makes you feel. In an interview from the Arts Education Partnership, Grace Chavez writes about finding balance within creative expression and life as a student. They have uncovered similar themes to what myself and many other students experience. Quote, "Through qualitative interview analysis, our research team uncovered several common themes across participant interviews: perfectionism, burnout, alone or in front of an audience, versatility. We all struggle with creative expression sometimes, or as artists, we simply do not feel like producing art at that very moment. It is vital we take care of ourselves and our creativity/expression by valuing the time and energy as artists and students," end quote. I personally resonate with this sentiment a lot. By valuing your time, energy, artistic expression as a student, and even more importantly as a creative, you begin to learn how to give yourself grace and how to take care of yourself. But in a world where everything is public facing, where every moment of creation is shared, it's easy to forget that. Let's talk strategies for balancing creativity and workload. How do we combat creative burnout? How do we reclaim our creativity? Here are some strategies that I and many other creatives found useful. You need to set boundaries with digital media. Schedule breaks, not just from work, but from consuming media. If you find yourself constantly scrolling and comparing, set intentional screen-free time hours. Let yourself exist outside of the digital space. I know, I feel like I'm lying to myself by saying this advice because I'm literally a digital media student, but it's so important to let your brain rest. Just log off. Next, try creating just for yourself. Not everything needs to be a project. Not everything needs to be shared. Make something messy. Make something no one will ever see. Take the pressure off. If you associate your workplace with stress, maybe find a new space to create in. Go outside, work in a sketchbook instead of a screen, or rearrange your setup to feel more inviting. My last tip is to prioritize nurturing your connection with people, both within your field of creativity and out. Those feelings of drowning and uncertainty about your art, yeah, a lot of creatives feel that way. Ranging from traditional artists to musicians to even people who don't do this as a job. Keeping in touch with your community and branching out to others is vital to keeping yourself stable and your mind clear. Thank you for tuning into The Creative's Dilemma. If any of this has hit a little too close to home, same. Burnout is tough, but hopefully throughout this episode, some of you feel a little more seen. Exhausting your creative energy is real, and it's something so many of us are navigating, especially in a world that constantly demands more from us. But your creativity is not a commodity. It's you. And despite all of our own warped perceptions due to our society, your connection with your content is the only thing that matters. Your creativity belongs to you, bound to nothing numerical or qualitative. I've been your host, Caitlin. If you enjoyed, hit that subscribe button, like, and comment what you enjoyed the most. Stick around for the next episode, and until then, maybe try closing that infinite scroll, just for a little bit.